Yo, what's going on, Cuzzo family? Welcome to the Cuzzo Podcast with Double L. I'm your host, LL. Today I have another amazing topic to go over. If you're returning back, thanks for following, guys. I definitely appreciate you guys. If you're new here, welcome to the Cuzzo, welcome to the family. And I want to just quick recap of my last episode. Last episode, we talked about parenting and how you parent your kids will leave a long lasting effect on how they parent, their kids. So if you haven't checked that out, after this episode, go back and watch it. If you have some comments, feedback, send them my way. I want to hear those things. So but for what we're here today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to a lot of men, which is mentorship. And more so why men don't, they don't go and find that mentorship. So I'm not doing it alone though. I got my good friend here, Leo. Leo is a father. He's a husband and has a strong career in his field. And we've had some deep conversations outside of this. So that's why I think he's a great person to start potentially a series on this. We don't know yet. We were talking before the show. He's like, man, we might need to do a part 2. So
to be determined.
We'll see how we favor here in about an hour or so. But yeah, man, Leo, definitely introduce yourself, man. Give your background, family, how life's treating you, what you got going on, man.
Yeah, that's a lot on an intro, but like you said, my name's Leo Geraldo, father of 6. Some of them are my stepchildren, but raised them as my own, and the love is still the same. Married, love my wife, have a beautiful wife. She's been holding me down. She's been my rock.
All the brownie points, just
I got to get as many as I can. No, but life is good. Work is going great. I manage an HVAC wholesale store, so that's been going pretty good. We're growing in the area. We're getting market share. So things are looking up professionally. Man of faith, a man of God, a child of the King, the living King.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And just before we touch on, I want to make this a point. What we talk about here is our beliefs, nobody else's. We're not trying to change your mind. I want to go ahead and establish that, so I want to respect everybody's beliefs, and so does Leo. And if he says something or I say something that you're like, that's fine. That's the whole purpose of this conversation and what this community I want to build is for. So for us to have the differences, but still respect each other. So
absolutely.
Just wanted to
100%.
Just wanted to touch on, make sure I cover that. But definitely appreciate you being here, man.
It's an honor.
It's an honor for sure, man. I definitely appreciate you taking the time. But so you said you're a father, you're a husband, got a career.
Yes, sir.
That's a lot.
It is.
Me personally, I'm the same. I have 3 kids. I've been married.
Yeah.
Going on 7 years, actually in August. I've been with my wife for 8 years in September, career path. So, I think we share similar, maybe, things that we go through, but with everything that we carry as men, how do you approach it? Do you think that seeking mentorship is important, and why? And before you became a follower, how was that? Like, did you seek it then also, or it wasn't until you became a believer that you're like, I need this?
Yeah. Wow. So before I was a believer, I sought out guidance in all of the wrong places. Right. So bad influences, bad lifestyles, bad choices, just leading down the wrong path. And even when I first came to Christ, even then trying to lean into understanding the necessity for mentorship, like we still think we got it all figured out.
Right.
And it hasn't been to really recently. And I've been in Christ since 2016.
Wow.
And it's been recently that I've been like, wow, I not only need guidance and mentorship, I need to be a mentor. Right. So, but in order to get to that place, you have to give from a position of overflow.
Right.
So you got to seek that mentorship. You got to seek that guidance to have like a baseline, right? Because there's a lot of programming that we go through as men, society and culturally, and upbringing and all this other stuff.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on that for sure.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I know that's a good part, because the next part that I want to touch on, and just to understand, I want to make sure I cover it. So for you, it's not that mentorship is something new to you. It's just maybe you didn't have a foundation on where to seek it before.
Yeah. So I can speak to my experience
Yeah.
and what I've seen, and even in our culture, the Latino culture,
Mhm.
but I think it's not exclusive to
No,
just
no.
us, right? My generation, I'm 46, gonna be 47 in August. My generation was that like real first generation of broken homes. So you're usually raised by a single mom, and then comes into play the stepdad,
Right,
right?
right.
I know I'm going a little deep here, but it tells you that a lot of men from my generation didn't know what it was to how to be a man, a healthy man with a clear mind, because you've never seen it. You don't know what
No,
it looks
no,
like.
no, for
So
sure.
how do you like become something that you've never seen?
Yeah, no, that's, and then, and then because of how movies and then things and men are portrayed in movies,
Yeah.
most of the time the bad guy's a dude,
Yeah.
I can't think of 5 movies where the villain is, a lady. So
It's the guy. And like even like most of them were taken away to whether it was the streets, the jail system, just addictions, that era. That was the, crack era, the, first generation. My brothers, myself, we're first generation born here. So those parents are coming from Puerto Rico, they're coming from Dominican Republic, they're come for the first time, and they're trying to figure it out in a foreign country. And at the same time have their old culture and try to apply that, and it didn't work here.
yeah, yeah, because so my mom brought me to the States when I was 3. I didn't grow up with my biological father, so I was raised by my stepdad, but he was my dad.
Yeah, no, I had a great
Like, yeah,
stepdad.
no, for sure. So I feel like I
Even
might have caught a cups like the end of that of that generation a little bit. So
Yeah, but that even though that relationship now with your now removed biological dad has an impact on that generation of men
right,
and what their expectation is of marriage, what their expectation is of fatherhood. It's all distorted,
yeah, I,
you know.
I can agree to that because man, I can sit here and just think of the times, man. I was, after my dad passed away, I'm like, man, I don't know how to be a dad. I don't know how to be a
Who does?
husband.
Who
You know what
does?
I mean? And even, yeah, you're right. Nobody's perfect, because everybody's gonna do the best to their ability. But at least like having a father to at least have these conversations
Yeah,
with, which is what my dad was really good with
yeah,
me, was like if anything's going on, just having the conversations and going over the pitfalls.
yeah. Sharing those experience. Even in that, every situation is unique. Nobody can really prep you for fatherhood, but you can have a baseline of what it looks like. You still have to go through it. You still have to make your mistakes, do some things well. But at the same time, if you had a healthy baseline, a present father, a present mother,
Yeah,
and you were raised in a united household, that impact long term and what it does to your programming
right.
is,
A skyscraper, they have to dig 20, 30, 40, you know, floors down to build the foundation. If something of a magnitude of a building needs that, I mean, us as humans, we're no, in the essence of like having that foundation, it's important. And the deeper your roots, the more role models you can have. And I think, I feel like the issue is sometimes we put role models on a pedestal, which is why a lot of people say you should never meet your heroes because they might do something to disappoint you. Because that's a whole nother,
yeah, no,
that's a whole nother topic. But
people are people.
yeah, people are people. But yeah, but I guess back to the core of what we were talking about, you know, the stigma of I'll figure it out. The stigma of man up,
Yep.
the stigma of, you don't need nobody. You just gotta look after yourself. Like I think that and these sayings are just what kind of has led us to where we're at now, because
Yeah, shake it off, brush it off.
yeah, yeah,
Like, get over it, man up. Like, this how, like, now, I think where we're at now culturally may be leaning a little too on the other end, but that's another topic. But yes, those sayings, those expressions, that way of thinking, that mindset is very unhealthy.
And it's not just men, you know, because so my two oldest kids are girls, and a lot of times, and I know that our family doesn't mean anything bad by this, but I just hate, maybe I shouldn't use the word hate. I dislike when they're like, big girls don't cry.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's like I said, I get it because you're trying to like help them understand, hey, sometimes you're gonna get hurt. Like I understand, but just the way you present it, if you present it that way, you say it enough times, they're gonna believe it.
Oh, there's the power of life and death is
on
on
the
the
tongue.
tongue. I mean, words have power.
Yep.
Because words have influence.
Yeah.
And influence leads to actions, and actions has consequence. So yeah, absolutely.
But do you think for men, is it what we talked about? Is it just the sayings? Is it the pride that sometimes men, you know, because you know, it's pride comes before the fall, you know. So
I'll put it to you in this way: male ego is married to pride, and pride and insecurity are the same thing.
Yeah.
So men
I've never looked at it
mask
that way.
pride and ego with real like emotion and insecurity. Like what they're really feeling is that emotion and insecurity,
Right.
but they present it as pride and ego.
Right.
Like, oh, you disrespected me.
Yeah.
Or you tested me, or you challenged me.
I don't want to seem like I'm weak.
Yeah, I don't. What are people going to say? Like, what does any of that mean?
Right.
At the end of the day, like if you're secure, you don't feel threatened by people's opinions.
Right.
You don't like. Why would you be threatened by someone's opinion if you know it not to be true? Like if somebody says something negative about you and you know it's not true.
Yeah.
Why should it trigger you so bad?
Yeah, because I think we just put that emphasis on what people say about us.
Validation.
Yeah, validation.
Everybody wants to be validated. And it's not that it's bad to be validated. It's bad to get it from the wrong source.
Right. And then the right source we tend to shun. And the reason I say that is because when I started this journey, we went out, had an outing with some friends. We went to a bowling alley, and my wife, by the way, is my biggest supporter.
Awesome.
Like when I stream, you know, here lately, some of the streams have been better, been getting more flow, which is awesome. And I thank everybody that just even shows up for I don't care if it's a second.
Mhm.
You know, they clicked on it, they watch me, and it helps me see that, okay, people are coming in. Even I don't know how, I mean, I can eventually find out how long they've been in there, but at the same time, that doesn't matter. Like what I see traction.
Yeah.
But sometimes my wife will be the only person in the stream watching me, man. So,
you know, to get into like my previous, what we were talking about with the music and everything, and how I stopped in 2016 and just picked it up a few months ago again. What made me pick it up again was a mindset shift. So the mindset shift was that, why am I doing this?
right.
Before I used to do it because I wanted to be heard. And now I do it because I need to speak. So it's different. I have some things that I need to voice, and the tool that I use is music. It's like poetry, writing a song. So I have some things that I want to get off my chest. I don't need to be heard. I just
want to speak.
Yeah, man. And it feels great. So the motivation is not exterior driven, right? So whatever comes of that is just like extra, man. It's like icing on the cake.
Right. Yeah. Like, you know, that's kind of,
if somebody enjoys it, like great. If not, I still did it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm doing streaming and podcasts for the exact same reason. I just felt like I guess in that previous episode I talked about, I just have to, this came across and it was heavy on my heart that if I didn't do it, I think I was going to do myself a disservice. So, but yeah, so back to what I was talking about, how sometimes us as men, and I read this in a book, and it talked about how we can't receive the positive from the people that we love, because we don't know how to sometimes. And the reason I say that, because it just happened to me. So that's why I believe it. Like I said, we were hanging out and I had set up my little tripod and, you know, just getting used to like having this kind of stuff around. And my wife was just oh, he's doing this and that. And like, honestly, I just shut her down.
You want to downplay it.
Oh, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
And like, I felt like an idiot.
Yeah.
Right after. And I apologized to her, because we were playing bowling and stuff. And I apologized. And I told her, I said, I let my insecurities and my pride and get in the way of you just shining a light on me. And I apologize, man. But that was
yeah, it's crazy. It's like we're the last ones to our support party.
right.
Like the last ones to believe when you shouldn't be. You should be the first one.
Yeah.
There, because every day you got to look at it like all you're trying to do today is be better than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
That should be your goal every day. Not better than anybody else, better than I was yesterday, right? A better version of myself every day. So your only competition is you.
Right.
So you're going to win some days and a part of you is going to lose, but you're always going to learn and grow.
Right.
And it's a part of the process.
Has there been times in your life where you knew that you should have sought help, mentorship, and just stayed quiet?
Yeah, for years. And then I was, dealing with some, just opening up. I dealt with some mental health issues, and I seeked out the help that I needed. And whether it's through just asking for prayer, going to therapy, I'd recommend it to men everywhere, everyone, but especially we're speaking to the community of men on this topic. And not just mental health, but also physical and emotional health, right? Like, so making those changes with my diet, with my workout regimen, well, actually having a workout regimen versus just being stagnant and just letting life be life. Oh, I don't have enough time. I'm too busy. Like, what's the point of having a healthy mind if you don't have a healthy body?
Right.
And what's the point of having a healthy body if you don't have a healthy soul? Right. So the mind, body, and soul.
Right.
All of it.
Yeah. No, I was guilty of that. I remember first time, big thing for, I think, a lot of Americans that we just don't, I think the world, just not just Americans, but when it comes to like finances, back when I was younger, like I had a buddy of mine was trying to help me, and there were times where he was doing more for my finances than I was. Like to this day, if you watch this episode, shout out to my buddy Will. Yeah, well, that's the thing. He's not an accountant. He's just a super smart dude. And it's funny because his name's Will Smith, and so I used to call him the Fresh Prince of Spring Hope because he's from Spring Hope, North Carolina. But he made the spreadsheet, and he purposely made it to help me, and I still use it to this day. But he learned how to write the coding and stuff for it, and like in the back end and all this stuff. And there were times where I'd just be having a pity party, and he's like, "Oh man, like let's get this through this stuff."
Yeah.
And so that was a moment where I didn't want to do the work, but I knew that it was the best thing for me. And there was a time where he kind of had to, he navigated that ship for me, and I just happened to be there. So
you had somebody there to be like a mentor.
Yeah. And we would talk about finances weekly. And when things got better, we went to every 2 weeks. Then eventually, it was like once a month. And then I actually had a good routine, but the instant gratification and the making dumb decisions always like derailed me. But at least he gave me the foundation and understanding. Because when we all fall short and we mess up, knowing that, okay, I've fixed this, I've been through this before, this is just another day at the office, let's just get the steps in place. But if it wasn't for him, what little I know about finances, it was
that's
him.
That's an actual area where a lot of men struggle with admitting they need help. Because it's like that, no, I got this.
Yeah,
this is on me. I got to do this. I got to figure it out. Man, yeah, I'm a work in progress.
And another thing I think that a lot of people, just a lot of men, we're talking about men, it's the trust. Like if you're someone, a lot of people that are hard to trust is because they open up that door to trust somebody. And of course, we're humans. We make mistakes, or we just had ill intents, and now I don't want to be hurt.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I believe that, the price of love is grief, because, when you open up yourself to love somebody, or somebody love up on you, that person gonna pass away.
Yeah.
They can do you wrong,
leave,
never talk to you again, and then now you have to deal with that grief.
That's why a lot of people close up.
Yep. So they're like,
it's part of the like I told you, the male wanting to be in control,
right?
Because we're told we're supposed to be
right
in control.
Exactly.
Like, who's saying this? Who's we? Right?
Yeah.
And what do they know?
So I think, you definitely have to have, you have to allow yourself to be open to be hurt, to trust again.
Yes.
If you don't, man, you're just gonna live life kind of in that same stagnant situation, and then 10 years gonna go down, 20 years, and you're like, man, who's around me? Because I couldn't trust them. Now, I'm not saying that you should be an open book to everybody, by any means. You should still have things that you keep to yourself within, or things you keep in small life, those are small things, but like, you have to show a little bit of trust and believe people when they show you who they are. A comedian once said, if it walked like a duck and quack like a duck, then it's a duck. So, you have to believe people, because if you don't, I mean, you're just.
I'm like right there. Recently, I've just been saying it a lot too. I said that they show you who you are, just believe them. Like, it's okay. And you don't have to have everybody so close.
Right.
You don't have to eliminate everybody
100%.
because of differences or whatever misunderstandings, because everybody you should give the same grace that you want in return, right? So there's opportunity for growth. There's opportunity for forgiveness. It doesn't mean you have to reconcile, right?
Right.
You have to forgive, and then you can build up that trust if it's something that it's healthy for both of you, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you do have to create those boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
I have a small circle of like inner where you're like, oh no, you can hear this portion as you should.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And yeah, that, and we'll touch back on that circle in here in a minute, but like, I guess if we're gonna just be honest, us as men, we just have to wait for it to hit the fan nowadays. Seem like before we even want to reach out, and then the issue is when we do that, we feel that the water is here, and now you're like, who's gonna, how do I reach? I should have asked when I was down here, but now I'm up to my neck, and now it seems, that's heavy for me, because like I've talked about before, my dad took his own life, and I think that's what happened. He took, so this episode it talks about something that I went through and didn't even know what was going on.
Wow. Yeah.
Because nobody in our family except my mom, my grandma, and then my stepsister's mom knew that he even tried before. It was so under wraps, because I think they didn't want to tarnish the image of him, of being the leader of the family, most especially I know he said all communities, but we could speak to the Latino communities.
Yeah, firsthand, obviously.
If you, go to therapy, you're crazy.
Oh, I think I might be the only person in my family that I know of
that
that's not only gone, but is willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, I talk to all my friends about it. I've shared at men's groups and whatnot. Like, it's not a secret, man. I'm not ashamed that, you want to get better. You want to be well. You want to be whole. And I'm still doing it. And I did whatever it took, man, to get myself into a place right now where I feel joy and I feel like it's my choice.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
Like, that's a good place to be, to not just because joy, right? Joy is a choice, but I make it every day because I'm more self-aware. I'm conscious of who I am and my identity.
Yeah.
And that I have purpose.
Right.
And it's been a complete turnaround, man. It's been amazing.
It's good you said that. So John Maxwell had a story. I was listening to one of his audios and stuff, and he was talking about how he's big, big speaker and stuff. So he was speaking, and his wife was also speaking. Now his wife was speaking to the ladies, and he was speaking to the men. And so he finished up early. And he's like, well, let me just go stand in the back and listen to my wife talk and what. And he talks about how he's in the back, and they asked his wife, have you been married? I forget what the number was, this many years. Does John still make you happy? And he's back there,
Yeah.
getting ready to strike it, stroke his ego a little bit. Was
What's
like,
that?
yeah, of course I
Yeah.
keep making it happen. And she said no. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
And then she said, my happiness is my responsibility, not his.
Yeah.
And like when you just said that, like joy is a choice.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, in the darkest of darks, you can still choose to be happy and have the joy and just unfortunately go through that valley in your life at the moment, so it is a choice.
I had to live through it,
Yeah, you have to.
where there was moments where I was like, man, this is dark, but I still was able to
Yeah,
find that peace, find that joy,
yeah.
and understand, that everything has a purpose.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's good when you brought that up. I thought about that
Yeah.
because I think we as men and mostly everybody, really, not just men. This goes out for the ladies too. But like we put so much emphasis on finding happiness through other things or other people or other idols or artists and all these things. And then at the end of the day, they do something that hurts you and like your whole life is just a
It's
shambles.
on. That's like somebody, prior to me moving to North Carolina,
Mhm.
when I was living in Massachusetts and working in New Hampshire, like right before COVID, like there was like this energy at the place I worked at. It was a little like dark, right? It just
Right.
felt off. Like there was like change of leadership, management, employees, everything was just changing. And I had this one man of faith, this man of God come to me and he said, Leo, do you feel that? And I said, yes. I already knew what he was talking about. He goes, we got to continue to pray. And I said, amen. Later that week, another man that, he's a Catholic man, and he comes up to me and he says, hey, Leo, can I ask you a question? Because he like used to rant a lot about how he felt and the energy in the place and how they were treating him. He goes, how come everybody's walking around so frustrated and down? And you still look like you have joy. And I looked at him and I said, well, because this place and my situation is not the source of my joy. So if it's not the source, how could it take it away?
Exactly. Exactly. No, yeah. You have to make that choice of being happy and, understand that a lot of things happen to a lot of different people. And regardless of what has happened to you, they shouldn't pay for that. So, you know, living through that happiness and that state of mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So you said 6 kids, right? So
2 biological via marriage.
okay,
So God has blessed me
yeah,
abundantly.
yeah. I said I got 3, and I'm over here just
Yeah. No, I mean, it'll get you grays.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, white hairs are the treasures of wisdom.
But
So I'm told, but
the youngest just turned 17 not that long ago.
mm,
The oldest actually turned 28 today.
28,
Yeah. So they're grown. We're entering into, my wife and I, into a different stage where it's
right?
more like thinking of that emptiness, even though
Yeah,
I don't know if that really exists, because then they start having kids
yeah. Oh, yeah,
and then it's grandpa.
yeah,
I'm like, man, I'm only 46. Don't leave
yeah.
me.
But I mean, the good thing is you could send those back.
That's true.
You need to come take
Yeah.
your child and
That's the key, is to remind them we can send
yeah,
them back.
yeah. But yeah, so because we're talking about men in the sense of like what situations have you gone through, if you were cool with sharing, where you had to like seek like the help? And the reason I want to ask that because it reminds me of actually the night that I think we met.
Yeah.
You had a situation. I'm not gonna go into
Yeah.
details, and you don't have to either. But you were going through a situation, and this is why the importance of having a circle. We talked
Oh,
about circle earlier. Is so important because just I want to set the scene. We're probably 10, 15 guys around,
yeah.
just sitting around, and Leo's just pouring out his heart, and everybody's just chiming in on the situation.
Yeah.
And at the end of it all of us got together and we put our hands on Leo, and Pastor was there, so he prayed for your situation, but
Yeah.
you know take religion, take the Christianity out of it, because, you know, of course, not everybody is a believer. You need that regardless.
Yeah.
You need to have that, because when we have issues, you know, a lot of us don't have a father to speak to, or don't have anybody in our lives. But if you surround yourself with men that are just listen to you.
Sometimes that's all you need. For me, it's like being an example.
Right.
And that's what true leadership is. And I know that I was called and challenged to lead in my life in different capacities. You have to be courageous enough to share with the right group, right? You got to be sure you're in the right space.
Oh yeah.
And you have the right support system. And if we don't communicate, so that situation, right? Like you can insert X into anybody, like whatever your situation is that
Yeah.
you're going through. If you're just keeping this internal and you're trying to fight it alone, you don't know what somebody else has dealt
Yeah.
with, or how their experience may be able to help you understand better. And, you know, maybe not to fix anything, but maybe just to be able to process it, right? Like what you're going through, and just having that support system with a bunch of brothers, right? Just to be able to hold my hands up, right? When I
Right.
needed it, and to understand like, hey, we need each other. Absolutely.
So as raising your sons, or just your kids in general,
Mhm.
but like, did you make it a point to model having those relationships, or like, did you just not have that around?
Yeah, man. I didn't have the manual. I didn't have the script. I had to live it and learn it in real time, right? And earlier in my years, I conceived my first child when I was 17, you know, so as a kid having a kid. It's the reality. It's not excusing any kind of like, there's plenty of people that have done it at that age and been great, right? But it's been learning, it's been painful, it's been tough, it's been challenging, and it's also been a blessing to see, you know, these humans that you are part of
Yeah.
making,
Taking care of, being
and
responsible for.
and watching them grow. Like, you know, the opportunity that you've had when you were doing what you were supposed to do versus when you weren't doing what you were supposed to do.
Right.
But yeah, with even with the step kids, it's just like jumping into a role like that. That's a lot of responsibility. And, you know,
And the trust you have to build, I'm
yes,
assuming, and
man,
I just,
it's,
you know, my all my kids are all my
yeah.
biological kids, but I can remember going through that with my dad,
Mhm.
and like, everybody would always like, "Why don't you call him dad? Why don't you call him dad?" It just didn't feel, just wasn't there yet, you know. And it eventually, I don't even remember what, I just stopped calling him Martin, and I just
Yeah.
start calling
No,
him dad. So
they still call me Leo to me,
right.
right? They still say Leo, but that's when they're addressing me, when they like are talking about me.
Yeah.
I hear, oh, that's my dad, or, you know, that's my dad, Leo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I can relate so much to their experience though, because I was raised by a stepfather. So I know what it is. And actually, I'm the youngest of four by mother. And
Right.
then I have one younger sister just through my dad's side. But
Okay.
she was raised away from us, not in the same household. But being raised by a stepdad and like having that genuine relationship and love for him. Yeah. I didn't look at him like my stepdad. He was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
my dad. And
Yeah.
I knew who
Yeah.
my dad was from distance. You know, there was some
Yeah.
issues there.
Yeah.
That generation, alcoholism,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
just,
Yes.
you know,
That's deep in my family as well.
yeah.
But for your kids, what is the sorry, what is the things that you would hope that they learn from you about being open, seeking the help? Like, do you think you did a good job of like covering that for them, or at least talking to them and telling them? Maybe because you said you didn't have really the support system, but like, did you have those conversations, or at least that you hope you talked about it enough to where they now feel comfortable turning to you or turning to people that they trust to seek that mentorship?
I think a lot of my expression has been through like just way of life, right? Like being transparent to that capacity. Like, hey, look, I'm going through this, or, you know, I'm on my way out of
Yeah.
this, you know, like even with health, like just sharing that, like with them as far as like how to eat healthy, working out, the importance of it, taking care of yourselves, just trying to be better. Like I always just say to them, I said it in a song too, but it's like, And they used to remember that lyric too. So it was kind of cool because it stuck. Always try to change the world, but never let it change you.
Right.
Right. Like be a person of influence. So with the right stuff. Right. And trying to be an example in that way, it's an everyday challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. We have some family that she's about to graduate high school, and her mom did like a little live thing on Instagram and was like, "Hey, any advice?" And anytime I've talked to her, and everybody was like, "Hey, always be yourself. Don't change who you are to fit into a group, because that group may let you in, but then who did you become to be in that group? And then if they let you down, now you have an identity crisis, because you're like, I was this person, I became this person. Now who do I stick with? Like, who's my identity now?" So yeah, always definitely stay true to who.
Yeah. Be who you are, be comfortable with who you are, love who you are, and want to be better.
Yeah. Does faith or community have a deep foundation on how do you approach mentorship now?
This
Does faith or community?
I think a lot is left to be desired
Yeah.
when it comes to identifying, especially male figures, and creating space and encouraging and connecting. I think, especially in the faith community, I think it's an area that we definitely need to improve as a whole. Because that exists there too, the Superman, when you're really Clark Kent. You know, you might have Superman moments, but nobody's Superman, right? You need help. You can help others as well. So, but people aren't really checking out for each other. That's why there's a lot more females that go to church than males.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to have a place where people are truly, genuinely connecting.
Right.
I believe we're on the right path, especially at our church.
Right.
But, you know, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. So do you have a somewhere like you have that community around you now?
Yeah, I do. One of the challenges that I think I face, and I'm sure numerous amounts of people go through the same thing, is that sometimes when you're a leader, you'll assume that you got it.
Yeah, you're good.
You're good. It's like, I used to pastor as well, and the pastor never gets prayed over, or he never gets checked in on.
And they're the ones that are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and they're checking on everybody, and it's not like a bad thing. Like, people like, when you're in that role, or you're a leader in your community or at work or anything, you embrace that. That's what you were called for.
Right.
But it is nice to, that's why I still have like pastor friends and stuff that like I'll reach out to just randomly, like, "Hey man, how are you?"
Yeah.
But how are you really?
Yeah. Like that's cut the surface level.
Yeah. No, I call my friends. I've had close group of friends. Yeah. I'll just hit them up instead of just a text, a call.
Yeah.
And be like, "But how you really?"
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's one thing that I realized, because my generation is probably I'm the generation that went from AOL, dial up, DSL, Wi-Fi, high speed. So I went through all these phases and the different communication aspects, like, going from email to now text to video chat to video podcast to radio station to.
Man, I'm from before the cell phone.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. When I was a kid, they still had the solid black Motorola phones with the little pulley antenna.
Yeah, even before
and all that. So
we was using a little rotary. You know what I mean? I'm aging myself.
Right. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this? Oh man.
You know, we're talking about reaching out and actually calling people.
Yeah. Oh, the text. Yeah, the text. Yeah. So what I learned going through, I was like, I don't know where I just lost it, but I just realized how text is probably the worst method of communication.
Yeah, there's no
emotion.
There's no emotion. There's no, like,
You can read into something that's actually not there.
right? That you're like, well, I know what this person
Right.
means because I can tell the emotion behind it,
Yeah.
or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just, everything is an LOL now.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And
Laugh out loud.
Is it
Is it really funny?
Like, or are you upset? Like, what is it? I'm like, yeah.
Does okay mean okay, or does it mean like okay? Yeah, it's just like it's probably the worst method of communication. And somebody actually, I was reading into this, and they talked about how like text and email was never meant to be a form of long conversation.
No, it's short.
It's short, firm. Get my English together here. Form. Yeah, form. And then it's like, Bob, these are my three things. This. What do you think? Or like, let me know. Then Bob replies, yes, no, yes. And you keep it pushing.
Yeah.
And that's what text is basically the same thing. But when you have these long, drawn out conversations, which we're all guilty of sending the
group chats and you know, a bunch of like, yeah, check out this video. So the issue with that is that where the conversation only has a beginning point, it doesn't have an end point.
Right.
But we're actually not connecting.
Right.
So it's like, this is the most access.
If you now could talk to your 17-year-old, I'm a new dad, what would be the one thing that you're like, this would be the thing that I would tell myself?
I've thought about things like this, not necessarily like the 17-year-old dad, but just in general, like the 17-year-old version of me.
Yeah. Or like the importance of mentorship, I guess. Yeah. Probably honing in like one thing about mentorship that you could tell yourself. That way it's not such a broad question.
Give yourself grace.
Yeah.
That's
give yourself grace. That's
great.
That's enough. That's enough as it is. Because how many times have I beat myself up over my failures?
I think the more grace you give yourself, the more willing you are to communicate what you're experiencing.
Right.
You're going to be a lot better at finding the right language to express your thoughts, your feelings.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you give yourself grace, you're in a position to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you tell, a man that listens to this podcast? Like, what advice would you give somebody? I mean, I guess I don't want to narrow it down to an age, but like one thing that could impact and change any man that listens to this.
Anybody, any age group, any human being, but specifically to men, I would say it's all right to admit you're not all right. Just don't stay there.
Yeah. Because I forget who the guest speaker was, but they talked about, doors in life and how sometimes doors have closed, jobs, family members passing away, divorce, you name it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go through that door and the door is closed and we're so worried about the door that's behind us that we fail to see the door that's in front of us.
The door that's already open, so you don't even see it.
It's just in reach.
Yeah.
You just have to walk through. But I mean, I was listening, I'm pretty sure it's in the book called No Excuses by Brian Tracy, I think was the name of the book. But he was talking to this gentleman and he's like, oh, I've been at this company for 20 years. They let me go. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, when did you start working? And he's like, 18 years old. So, okay. So you're 40 now. He's like, yeah. And when do you plan to stop working? He's like, when I'm 70. He's like, so you're 40 and you want us to work till you're 70. You have 30 years. So I think we put such an emphasis on time and like, we don't want to start over.
Yeah. It's never too late.
Right.
The only time it's too late is when it's over.
Right.
So while you're still here, there's still hope.
Yep.
There's still opportunity. And this relates to everything, man. Just looking in the mirror and saying, am I happy with my situation? Am I happy with the way I look?
Yeah.
Am I happy with my circle?
And
like, let's just get better.
Yeah.
Like, why not when they wake up and say, hey, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to eat clean.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why not? I'm going to make my finances better. I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to do things with purpose. So this is to move with purpose, on purpose, and in purpose. Align your life with that principle.
Yeah. And the other side of that is you have to be fulfilled where you're currently at. Because if you're always like, you talk about, whatever the thing is you're trying to go for, whatever achievement you're always going for. I think J. Cole even talks about this in one of his songs, but he talks about, there's always going to be a better car. There's always going to be a better house. There's always going to be a better this, better that. You can put whatever it is. You have to be fulfilled with where you're at. Find that happiness like we talked about earlier, and then make the changes, like you said, to move forward. Because if you just go after the accomplishment, and there's always somebody that's doing it bigger than you.
It's
the comparison kills.
amazing to set goals.
Yep.
It's amazing to set goals. You should never stop dreaming. The minute you stop dreaming is the minute you stop being creative. It's the minute you start like really having the joy of life, right? So continue to dream, set goals, but fall in love with the process. If you can fall in love with the process, the goal almost like it is out of sight because you're just so in the moment. And to learn to be present in the now, like right now, we're doing the podcast, we're present here. When you're spending time with a loved one or at work, be present there. If you're at a game, be present there. You know, if you're in worship, be present there because there's a time for everything. And just be present in the moment, live life to the fullest, continue to grow, continue to challenge yourself, continue to dream, and continue to walk this thing of life and give yourself grace.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I have conversations with, I talk about this with everybody, and I don't try to be overbearing because it's not that I'm not trying to stroke my ego about because I'm doing X, Y, Z. I'm doing this because I feel called to do it, and I feel like it's something that I want to do. So I talk about it to people, but I have conversations where, and I've been there, so it's not like I'm not saying anything I've never said, but we get so caught up in the whole, I'm the provider and that's it. And man, if it wasn't for my buddy Chris Martin and the deep conversations, I don't, my parents were together basically my entire life until my dad passed away. From when I met him at 3 up until 20, like they were together.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 17-year marriage.
Yeah.
So you're like, man, 17 years, that's amazing. The stories aren't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The stories aren't amazing. Now, there were some great times. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh my gosh, my life was miserable. No, I'm not going to go there. But there were some stories that were not great.
Yeah.
Like finding out that my dad cheated on my mom, and the way that I found out, like he was cheating on my mom with like her best friend.
Yeah.
And how I was crushed, because he's my hero.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because like years down the road, I found a little notebook and just writing stuff down at the very end and asked the question like, who's your hero? And I wrote my dad, so yeah, man, I sometimes think about how if my dad would have allowed himself, or if he just had a group around him that would challenge him a little bit and push him in certain aspects, not saying that he would be here today.
Yeah. You don't know.
Because you just never know where people are, but it's been a big turning point in my life.
Here's a bigger question. Does one mistake or one bad decision, one bad life choice define 17 years? Does it erase it? Could the two things both be true? Can my hero have let me down versus my hero's no longer my hero? You know what I mean? Like I look at that because like just even me with my relationship with my now son that just turned 28 today, it's not where I'd like it to be.
Right.
But I didn't have that with my dad growing up, and I was able to earlier in like maybe when I was around like 16, 17, forgive him. Like, and that gave me peace to know that like, wow, I see him. He's a lot like me and I'm a lot like him. And, like to not give that grace now in a position where I'm calling for it.
Yeah.
So it gives me hope.
Yeah. No, hindsight's 2020.
Yes.
I look at things now and it's different looking through the lens of what did he have going on? If you narrow it down, owning a company, building a company, trying to leave the company because he just got tired of that lifestyle, having to force himself back into it, money problems, basically, I mean, like your entire family basically worked with him. So like if he didn't produce and find jobs, it was like family members. Now, granted,
that's a lot of weight. It's a lot of pressure.
He's been gone now since 2013, so they've figured it out. Not that they can't, and they had to, but like at the moment, it was easy to be upset with him.
Well, here's
Not
here's a
give him
question.
grace.
Here's a question to men, and a question that I've constantly had to remind myself the question is, who appointed you hero? Like, who said that to you?
Yeah.
Who said that everything rides on you? Like, we do have an immense amount of responsibility, but
100%.
there's nothing that a man is called to that he's not equipped to when he's healthy. When a man is healthy, leading from a position of health is going to put you in a position to be successful and fruitful. But you're still not the hero. Like, you're not the hero.
Yeah. And I think it's an identity that we just give ourselves,
Yeah.
because we don't, now that I
To be a
think,
hero is to think that everyone needs to be saved. And as far as I know, there's only one of those heroes. I don't think we were called to save everybody
right.
around us. I think we were called to be people of influence. I think we were called to be friends, to be sons, to be brothers, to be husbands. We're called to lead, right?
Yeah.
Whatever capacity you're called to lead, and to be a pillar in your community, to be a pillar in your family,
Mm-hmm.
but not to be the whole thing.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I agree 100% with that. And again, back to what I was saying, the identity that we just, especially if you felt like you didn't have it, like you feel like now you want to be that. And
Yeah.
and even when with my kids, like, cause my kids they're mixed kids. So we have my coach. So I basically grew up with two different kind of cultures. Cause, my mom was Dominican and my biological father's Dominican, but my dad, he's Mexican. So like I grew up
Yeah.
and mixed in between both culture, and there are different.
They're definitely different.
So then it's like I have that mix, and then my wife's white. My wife is white and black.
Yeah.
So like there's the black community. She didn't grow up with her father, so not really much of a community there and culture there, but still,
Yeah.
it's still out there. Like my kids are like this melting pot of communities, and like to be honest with you, I don't want them to solely listen to any of them. I want them to navigate
All
like
of it.
and call out the bad, because we don't do that enough. We don't call out the bad.
This is what people could like. A good saying is to learn to eat the fish and spit
Mhm.
out the bones. Like, there's good and things that we can learn and take
Yeah.
away. As the Apostle Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. So whatever's good, do that. And whatever's not good, don't do that.
Yeah.
Just because this is the way it was, or this
Yeah.
is what I know. Guess what? You have opportunity every day
Yeah.
to change your mind,
Yeah.
change direction, to change a thought,
Yep.
a belief. Anything that you have can change if you want it to.
Yeah.
And to be open to learning new things, experiencing new things, trusting different things, right? Like, but also protecting what is good, what you got from your background, because there's some foundational things there that
Yeah.
are also good. We might have had a broken home or a stepdad or whatever it was, but I know what I never lacked in my house: love
Yeah.
and encouragement.
Yeah.
And there was never any self-doubt. I thought I can do anything. That's why I chose music, and I'm be the best artist in the world,
Right.
because like I knew I was going to make music before, like I didn't even know how to sing. And then like I didn't have a good voice to sing.
Right.
And then I fell in love with hip hop and rap, and wow, here's the avenue. But even when I couldn't sing, I was being supported.
Yeah.
Not delusionally, like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want if it makes you happy,
Yeah.
and just go for it.
I was
I
just
believe in you.
I was listening to a guy. I'm not gonna even try to say his last name, but I know his first name is Gary. He's a big motivational speaker. He's very, very big on, like, this girl went up to him and was like, "When I'm somebody, I want to," and then he's like, "You're somebody now,"
Right now.
And he said that how when his mom was little, was sorry, backwards. When he was little and his mom would, like, if he held the door for somebody, she would like make it like the best thing to slice bread. And like that taught, him like, hey, like what I do
Yeah.
has value,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like doing big, especially for kids, man. Cause kids are so easily influenced,
Oh,
you
they're
know, and
sponges. We're as humans, we're sponges, but
yeah,
especially
the
in those
children,
early age.
that's why it's so
Yeah,
important to, protect that. And, we can go down so many different avenues when it comes to that, but you just have to protect them because they're so innocent, they're
yeah.
so gullible, they're so,
Whatever they're exposed to,
yeah,
what they're going to be around, what kind of language is being
yeah,
spoken in their presence. Because, like you said about the sponge thing,
yeah,
as how you know what's in a sponge is by applying pressure to it, and
exactly,
whatever it had already inside, that's what comes out. So if
yeah,
you fill them with good stuff, with positivity, with diversity, with like just open minds, right, and good foundational like parenting, that's
yeah,
what's going to come out when they squeeze. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't learn that until
yeah,
we learn it, right?
yeah, and that's why it's funny that we're talking about mentorship when you have kids, you're automatically by default a mentor. Now, how
Yeah.
good or bad of a mentor you are,
I always say, because sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm not a leader." I say, "No, you're definitely a
yeah,
leader. You might not be a good leader,
yeah, 100%,
but you're leading."
yeah,
So there's ways to be better at finding out what you're supposed to be doing, what's your
100%,
purpose, and living that out. But that takes growth.
yeah,
That takes an open mind. That takes really some self searching.
yeah, because it's a lot of people having conversations. They'll say, "Well, I'm not I never wanted to be an example," but unfortunately, you
You
are.
are.
Like,
What kind of
what?
example?
Yeah, because like you have here we are on the Cuzzo podcast, right? Cousins,
Yeah.
you have cousins, you have siblings, you have family, friends, kids. They're looking at you, and not that you're responsible for them, but what you do around them. Like if you know you're doing something that you don't want anybody else to be, you may not want to be around younger kids because they're going to want to mimic that. They're going to want to do, Luis did that. I want to do that too. And that goes both ways, the good and the bad. You know what I mean? So like for me, I know like the night that my, dad passed away, I'm not a big drinker. I might have a beer every blue moon, and people that are around me know that. And
Blue Moon. No pun
no
intended.
pun intended, right? This is such a nasty beer, but
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't like them.
Yeah.
But the copyright. But I was drunk when my dad passed away.
Wow.
Well, if I wasn't drunk, I was very extremely under the influence. Now I didn't drive. I was just home by myself,
Yeah.
and I think that's why I just don't.
Wow.
You
Yeah,
know that
that
I
would rock your
remember
world.
being
That
just loopy and all this stuff, and
to not be in your right mind
yeah.
when such
I mean, the last conversation we had is he walked in the room and handed me $120.
yeah.
And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "That's for you." And that's it. That was the last conversation I had with my father.
Wow.
And I talk about that. I mean, I've talked about that on the podcast where like those moments matter, you know?
Yeah.
So, and yeah, and I think we were talking about this before we had the issues is, man, if my dad had somebody, a group of guys, and, it doesn't have to be just guys, but it's just a group of people that are there like to listen to him. I think, I forget if it's in Think and Grow Rich or Master Key to Riches, but Napoleon Hill talks about how President Lincoln during the Civil War, he's dealing with South and the North separating,
Yeah.
and and then the country's in this disarray,
Craziest moment in history.
right?
Sometime,
And
yeah.
he reached out to a friend back in Illinois. I'm pretty sure he's from Illinois, and his friend, hey, the president says come to the White House. I'm going to go to
Yeah.
the White House. So he goes to the White House, walks into the office, sits there for 3 hours. And of course, everybody's just talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
who is this guy? Is he like some general that we don't know about? He he came out, and of course, you got all these people asking him questions. Like, what you guys talk about? He's like, nothing. I said, what do you mean? You've been there for 3 hours? He's like, no. He just needed somebody to listen to him.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about how the pressure that we carry, sometimes we don't need you to help us through it or to do it for us. We just need to be heard,
Yeah.
so and that's why the community is important. That's why you need to find a group. I don't care how young you are. We have good friends.
The younger you start
Yeah.
to implement this into your life, the better off you're going to be. Absolutely.
Yeah. But back to what you said something about give yourself grace. If my dad would have gave himself more grace through it all, through all the hardships, and like you said, does one make the other one right or not? You never. I don't know, but I could have gave him more love and grace. So
and there's freedom in that.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, my dad, outside of who he was and his character, he tried his best to be a good father.
Yeah.
Now, the relationship that he had with his kids was everybody got a different side of him.
Yeah.
The side that I got was somebody that wanted to make sure I was okay. He did that for me for years, but I can't think of many times I did that for him.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I can't think of many times where I'm like, oh, unless he specifically asked me a question, how many times did I stop and be like, Dad, you okay?
No, it's not a thing. It should be a thing, but it's not a thing.
That's from a son to a father and vice versa, but like how many people need that?
Yeah.
But well, man, I think we've hit the nail on the head solid with this conversation, man. I think
Yeah, man, it's been great.
Yeah. To all the listeners out there, if you guys have gotten some out of this, and think of somebody that could take something out of this and is valuable, share it. This isn't about making the podcast grow. I want that to happen. If that's in the works for it to happen, it will happen. But if we said something on this episode, even if it's you just want to screen record to clip it, whatever, but
to spark the conversation,
just share it. Yeah. Send them to my, social media or whatever. Send me a message, whatever. But definitely share it, because the purpose of this is to help, is to build community. Again, I know I probably sound like every other person that's building something like this and saying it's not about the growth of the platform. It's about helping. So yeah, but definitely share it. This man's actually going to start his own podcast. So that's another reason that we're meeting together. I'm going to go over and
history in the making.
Right. Yeah. So, definitely be on the lookout. I think he's still ironing out a lot of the details.
Yes, sir.
As soon as I know anything, believe me, I'm going to be sharing it, promoting it, because he took his time to be on my podcast and talk about.
My pleasure.
Be transparent and be vulnerable and be open and just speak from the heart. So I gotta share that and share the love and spread the love. But any last minute thoughts for the.
Man, it's just been an honor to be on your podcast, for all the information you're sharing with me currently, and just the opportunity to continue to build, man.
Yeah.
Just keep it moving forward.
Well, we'll see. We might do a part 2 of mentorship, or maybe even something deeper, but
let's do it.
Yeah, I have to stay tuned and, join all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. So check us out. Yeah, have a good one.